Speaking of really insane people who sort of, and this really gets to how gun ownership is really not about Second Amendment rights. This is really not about freedom or unshackling ourselves from the oppression of the tyranny from the jackbooted thugs who are coming from the UN. This is really about a cultural identification. It really in many respects, functions for the right in the same way that things like homophobia and misogyny do. It's obviously different, but it functions in the same way as a cultural a touchstone. And
Yes.
here's a perfect example of it. This is from the American Family Association radio show hosted by Sandy Rios. In response to Starbucks saying, clarifying after they had said, look, we adhere to the right to the laws in each particular state in terms of a right to carry, and then following that, these right-wingers held Starbucks appreciation days, including in Newtown, Connecticut, where this Sandy Hook shooting took place. And then Starbucks said, oh my God, these people are completely insane. They issued a new proclamation. Please, we can't make you. We're not gonna have guards at our doors, but please leave your guns at home when you come to Starbucks. Here's the response by Sandy Rios from the American Family Association.
And speaking of shooting, you just wonder if the next one's going to take place at one of your favorite coffee establishments, because Starbucks has now a full-page letter. I'm holding it up in the Washington Post today, signed by, I think it's Howard Schultz. I think that's his name. It's his script. It's in cursive, so I can't quite. I think it's Howard Schultz.
Now pause it
who's
here for
the
a second.
chairman.
There's also here's a hint. This is off topic to Sandy Rios. You can Google who's the CEO of Starbucks if you can't read the name. Go.
If you're hosting a radio show,
Right.
maybe that's something
God
you wanna
forbid to do any work other than just sort of drum up what is the most based and easy, low-hanging fruit of cultural identification. Go ahead.
And president and CEO of Starbucks basically asking customers to stop bringing firearms to their stores or outdoors, even outdoors. So if you're a policeman, I guess, if you're, an FBI agent, if you are any kind of officer, if you're in Texas, if you're in any Georgia, where you can carry firearms in your purse, on your person, conceal and carry, no longer at Starbucks. Now, they're saying this is not an absolute, this is a request. Please don't bring your guns. And it goes on and on and on. And so, so here's an open letter, full page. I don't know if people like the shooter on Monday read the Washington Post or these treatises from people like Starbucks, but you just, John Lott, our professor friend, who was our guest Tuesday, who is the leading academic on gun use in the United States, has some interesting statistics about the last, I can't recall the number, but several numbers of mass shootings. I think 80, 90% of them took place in gun-free zones. Somehow, as sick-minded as some of these people are, they manage to figure out where they can go and do this and not actually be killed themselves, although they often end up dead. But it's just amazing to me. So Starbucks, keep that in mind when you're going through Starbucks this morning, that don't be sure and don't take your gun through.
I don't even know. The level of stupidity here is stunning, but what's really important...
Just say go when I can respond to this more.
Well, the level of stupidity here is stunning. Aside from that, it really is just about cultural identification, right? This is just, there's absolutely no point to what this woman is saying, other than the fact that maybe a police officer might feel inhibited to go into Starbucks, and if that's the case, then, maybe someone who is mentally deranged might be aware that a cop might not be in there or might leave his gun in the car. I don't even know what it is. It's
right.
insane.
Well, first of all, they're obviously, it's proven to you that these guys, the same as those that always want to bomb other countries, act like tough guys, when they're the scared little kids hiding under their beds because everything, oh my God, somebody's gay, or people who look different than me. They're like John Rocker on a New York City subway. They're freaked out of their minds because anybody might look different than them, act different than them, so they need their gun to protect themselves because they're emotionally their children, which is why Tea Partiers are generally the stupidest people you'll meet. In this particular case, there's a few things going on here. First of all, she's flat out lying. Mayors Against Illegal Guns did a large study which found that that only in 23% of the cases, and by the way, I did consult with them in the past. I don't currently, just to be clear. In 23% of the cases of these mass shootings were in gun-free zones. That's their new talking point, as if someone who's a lunatic thinks to themselves, I'm going to go where there are no guns. Because, of course, there are no guns at a Navy Yard, and there are no guns at Fort Hood. I mean, it's a joke. And so the 80 to 90% figure, a complete lie and completely made up, which is a nice segue to the next thing. The guy she cites, and these people cite, John Lott, a so-called academic who is a bought-off NRA fraud. The list is so long, I would encourage people just to Google the guy if they care about this. Atrios, our friend Duncan Black, has had a lot of fun at his expense. I have, others have. This is a guy who, when he would go online for a couple of years, invented a sock puppet named Mary Rosh that was one of his supposed students that would show up anywhere and say how amazing a professor and how brilliant he was until they discovered it was coming from the same IP address as everything he wrote. This is a guy who created a study on concealed carry where supposedly just brandishing a weapon scared somebody away 90% of the time, then couldn't recreate the study when other actual objective researchers asked him. Not only could he not recreate the study, he couldn't provide any evidence that the study had ever taken place. They just said to him, fine, give us the names of some of the respondents, the people that you interviewed. He couldn't do that because his computer had crashed, so he had no records, nothing. They couldn't find respondents. They couldn't find figures. They couldn't find anything because obviously this guy literally just made something up out of whole cloth. And on another occasion with one of this guy's studies, all of his coding errors and with the statistics were so bad and so wrong that once a bunch of other researchers took them and straightened them out, all of his findings were completely erased. So he's a liar and a fraud, and nobody takes him seriously outside of the right as anything but a liar and a fraud who the NRA directly pays to make up lies. So,
well, Cliff, let me just say this in response to that. First off, he's a professor, and you're Jewy.
That's a good point. Good point. Is that it?
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the Ron Paul fan to show up here and tell me I look Jewy.
Right.
So that
well, that's the only
anti-Semitic.
response there. I mean, this is the thing. Is obviously they're just sort of. This is just like we have a professor who is but she's obviously not worried about people Googling this guy or knowing anything of the background of what he's saying. But I mean, I think that's obviously debunked, and
I mean, and I think people who listen to your show would know this, but the right tries to play around with this, and so it's so important to get the stats out because of what we're talking about with Starbucks here, which is anywhere where there are guns. A huge study was just released last week by the Violence Policy Center. Where there are more guns, there's more gun violence. I know that's just common sense, but the studies say it too. Guns travel across state lines, the perfect example being the shooting that just happened, where the guy got his guns in Virginia, a very permissive market with very few regulations, and took them to Washington, because that's another favorite talking point of the right, which is Washington, D.C. and Chicago. Well, what you'll find when you look into that is that most of the guns arriving in Washington, D.C. used in murders are coming from Virginia or West Virginia, and most of the ones in Chicago are coming from Indiana. Because those are states that have basically, if you have a pulse, and sometimes not even that, you can get a hold of a gun. So again, the best place you can ever study, because it provides an actual example, is Hawaii, where you cannot just drive a gun across state lines. And magically, I mean, I don't know how this happened, because of course John Lott's right in everything he says. Hawaii has the lowest rate of gun ownership and the lowest rate of gun violence. So that's all important to know. With this, I'll say quickly because I know you want to get into other topics. I've actually worked on the Starbucks case, if you want to call it that, on getting Starbucks to do some of what it just did. Pete's Coffee and Tea, for example, another popular place, has banned guns and doesn't allow them. We were publicizing this for a while. I do consult for a group called the National Gun Victims Action Council, and we were letting people know, and we started about a year and a half ago. I wasn't consulting for them. I have been for a few months now. And we joined with Moms Demand Action, some other groups, and we're pointing out, well, there have been 2 or 3 in the last few months accidental shootings where guns have just gone off in Starbucks and people have been shot. There have been obviously, if I don't know about you, Sam, I'm sure you'd love to grab your kids, take them into a Starbucks and have somebody open carrying an assault weapon. That probably makes you feel comfortable drinking your coffee. And we were just telling people, you should know this. If you don't, that Starbucks will allow this. And in response, Starbucks has at least gone halfway, and they're not putting signs up banning it, but they're telling people that they don't want them there to bring guns in, or however they'll still serve them. And the key thing here is that's not the rule at Starbucks headquarters, where the corporate chieftains are. At Starbucks headquarters, of course, they don't adhere to local law. They ban guns because they know that where there are more guns, more people get shot.
Right.
So
Happy to have you
they'll
come
have the
visit
same
us.
respect for their customers.
Yes, happy to have you come visit us and perhaps sell us, be our new sugar supplier or something. But just please don't carry your weapon into the meeting with us.
Right. So what we're responding to Starbucks is great. Glad you're open-minded, Howard Schultz. By the way, Sandy Rios, that's Howard Schultz with an S. And great first step, showing, but this still doesn't cut it, because in the end, you can't put your safety ahead of the safety of your customers. And if you're going to ban it, in your corporate headquarters because you realize what the statistics say, then you need to do the same thing in your stores. That's simple.